Good morning, y'all. Uh, this morning, we're going to, we got several things in the kitchen we need to get done. The first thing we're going to do is slice up this cornbread, put it in some saran wrap, then either cover it in parchment or tinfoil, and then we're going to put it in a Ziploc bag, and we're going to put this in the freezer. And then anytime I need a slice, I can just grab, individual slices out and warm them back up to go with my meal. This freezes really well, and you can freeze it up to 3 months. If you do make it, make sure, and you want to freeze it, just make sure you cut this into individual slices. Reason being, if you try to warm this whole thing back up, because this warms up best in the oven, 350 degree oven, 180 Celsius for 5 to 10 minutes, preheat it, cover it in tin foil for sure to keep your moisture in your cornbread slice. But if you try to warm this whole thing back up, you'll end up basically cooking it again, and then it will be terrible. So if you make this, just make sure you slice it in pieces. For years, I had no idea you could freeze cornbread. Wished I had known. So anyway, I'm going to get this cut up. That looks big enough. Not too terribly large pieces. This, my favorite thing to eat with cornbread is a big bowl of butter beans, or a big bowl of chili, or a big bowl of some kind of soup, or even roast. This sops up the juice very well, and it's delicious. Okay, now I need to lay out some clean wrap. I won't make y'all watch that. So each piece I'm going to put into some cling film. Ensure every one of them is well covered and no air can get in. Just like that. Why isn't my light is on, but it's not showing up, and even that's not better. I don't know what's going on. My camera's looking kind of funny, at least on my side. So anyway, each individual slice, and I'm going to put them all in this gallon size hefty freezer bag. Just that easy. And then every time I want a piece, I just grab one out and stick it in the oven or the microwave. And there we go. All 6 pieces fit in there perfectly. And that goes in the freezer. Next up, we're going to freeze some garlic. Now this is the rest of one head. I'm going to set these aside because I've got at least 2 more quarts of pickles to make, and some pickled onions. So I'm going to keep these. But all of this, and this is 2 separate packs. I can't tell y'all how many years that I threw away garlic, because at least in my store, you can't just go in there and buy one head. You gotta buy. Actually, I got this at a different store the other day that I didn't even know existed. Most of the time, there are at least 3 of these or 4 in a pack, and but for the last few years, I have been freezing them. All you have to do, cut it open. You don't even have to cut it open. Just press on it, and it'll tear open. Of course it makes a mess. Let me dump this really quick. Trash can's right underneath me. Okay. Let's pry it open. Now this does take some labor. Honestly, you know, it takes a little while to sit here and peel a whole bunch of cloves of garlic. But if you knew how many times that I needed garlic, and the store is 10 miles from here to get the garlic, so whatever it was I wanted to make just didn't get made because I, you know, wasn't going to drive 20 miles for 2 garlic cloves. This is so easy. Like I said, it takes a minute, but peeling this up and freezing it over driving 20 miles for just a couple of cloves, I'll take any day. So, get all my cloves out. I'm going to peel every single one of them. And I'm going to, now you can do this in multiple ways. You can freeze your cloves whole, which is what I'm going to do. You can mince these up. If you use a lot more, you know, minced garlic than clove garlic, you can mince these up. Take an ice cream scooper and scoop you a, you know, bunch of little pucks or clumps, whatever you want to call them. Par freeze them, put them in the freezer for, you know, 15 minutes or so to get them solid hard, and then put them all in a Ziploc bag. Now, if you're going to freeze garlic, you at least want to double bag it. I triple bag mine. If you put all this garlic unpeeled in one Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer, your entire freezer is going to smell like garlic, and everything in your freezer is going to taste like garlic when you take it out and cook it. I wouldn't know that from experience, of course. I'd never do such a thing. Yeah, right. So, to keep that mistake from ever happening again, I triple bag mine, and I've never had a problem since. So, again, not going to make y'all watch. I'm fixing to peel all this garlic, and I'll be back. So, there we go. That was 3 heads. Small heads, obviously. They came from the grocery store. Every one of them peeled. We're going to put them in this little bag. Well, this might be overkill, but after I turned everything in my freezer, including my ice cream, into garlic, I take no chances. And this garlic here will last me, now, honestly, this probably won't last me but about, no, it might last me 3 months. It would last me longer, except most of this is going to get used in pickles. All right, and then we're going to take this freezer bag. We're going to stick that in that bag. But the beauty of it is I no longer have to freak out because I have no garlic to make my pickles with. And then we're going to stick that bag in this bag. Triple bagged. That way, just in case one of these bags somehow gets a hole, or, you know, I know that my garlic is safely wrapped up, sealed up. Nothing will happen to my garlic, and more importantly, nothing will happen to all the other food in my freezer. Now I'm going to get a Sharpie, and I'm going to just write on here garlic cloves, and I'm going to put 723. That way I know for any, it'll never last. I mean, if this lasts me 3 months, I'll be surprised, honestly. But regardless, I still write it on there anyway. And then we're going to come back and we're going to make some pie crusts so we can make our apple pie. There we go. I highly recommend anything that you freeze, even if you think there's no way possible that you will get it confused or won't know what it is because you put it in a certain container or a certain, you know, shelf in your freezer door, or it's easy to get confused because once stuff starts freezing, you can't tell what any of it is. Especially green beans and green bell pepper. Or jalapeno. That was probably the biggest mistake I made. I froze both bell pepper and jalapeno, and I had diced both of them up. Can you imagine what my potato salad tasted like, full of jalapeno? Oh boy. I think I've told y'all I'm pretty. It's not that I'm airheaded. I'm just a little clumsy, scatterbrained, and I make a mess. And like I said, easily cleans up. Like I'm fixing to clean up all this mess. 1 minute from now, it'll all be back perfectly clean and disinfected. Anyway, mark your stuff when you put it in the freezer. Can't stress that enough. Okay, we'll be back with our stuff to make pie crust. All right, y'all. To make a pie crust, just one crust, you need 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. That's 150 grams for non-Americans. You need 1 stick of very cold butter, cubed if you can. That is 113 grams of butter for non-Americans. You can use salted or unsalted. That's up to you. If you're going to use unsalted, then you're going to need to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You need 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar. I believe that's 15 ml for you non-Americans. And then you're going to need 5 tablespoons of ice cold water. 75 ml for non-Americans. Now, to measure out your flour, you need to be very exact on this. This is the best way that I have found to measure out my flour when I'm making pie crust or baking a cake. And y'all don't think I'm using dirty stuff here. I made a pie crust before I did this because I need to. So get your 1 cup measuring cup. Just get a spoon. Really gently, don't pack it down. Just like that. Take you a knife or an offset spatula. Hold it flat. Come back this way with it. Make sure you get that off. And then go back that way with it. Again, get this little bit off this right here. And there you go. That's an exact 1 cup amount of flour. Then we need a 1/4 cup. This ensures you don't pack it down and you get exactly the amount that you need. Even a tablespoon extra of flour can mess up your pie crust. So we know we're going to get it exact when we do this. Hold it flat. Come this way. Hold it flat. Go back that way. Make sure you get this little bit off right there. There you go. Exactly 1/4 cup. Don't need any more of this. Now, again, if you're using unsalted butter, you're going to want to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt in here. Now, when you make your first one, just try it out. Especially if you're using unsalted butter, add a 1/4 teaspoon. And if you think it doesn't have quite enough salt in it, then the next time you make it, add a little bit more. You'll never need more than a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but just try it out. And you want to make it to your liking. You're making this after all. So, tablespoon sugar. Now, I am using salted butter, but I'm still going to add just a splash of sea salt, and I mean just a splash. Going to whisk this up. Just make sure your sugar and your salt are incorporated. That's it. Make sure you have clean hands. And the reason this is so important that our butter stays cold, and I can tell mine's already starting to warm up. So Your butter is what makes your pie crust flaky. And when this butter starts to melt in the oven, it will create like little tiny pockets, which adds the flake, like little tiny pockets of air when it melts. And oh, it's so good. Now, even though I make mine with butter, you can use vegetable shortening. You can use half vegetable shortening, half butter. Entirely up to you. You can use lard if you want. You just need a fat, and as long as it adds up to 1 stick or 113 grams. If you have a kitchen scale, it's also a good idea to measure this stuff. Because again, you want to be exact when you're doing any kind of baking. Now, if you're cooking stovetop, you can add as much or as little of something as you want. But when you're making pies or cakes, you want your ingredients to be exact. So we're just gonna smush them up just a little bit. If you have a food processor, you can do this in about 30 seconds. I do not have a food processor nor a stand mixer, so I make all of mine by hand. You just want your butter. You want all of your flour to be coated in butter, first of all. And you want this to have like almost like a sandy texture once all your butter is incorporated. You definitely don't want to leave any big chunks of butter. Maybe little pebbles will be the biggest, because you need to make sure the butter is incorporated throughout the flour. So if I was using both hands, this would only take a second. So I'm going to speed through this, and I'll be right back. By the way, you can also use a fork like this. If you have a pastry cutter, you can use that also. And like I said, if you've got a food processor or a stand mixer, you can. It truly takes about 30 seconds. Someday maybe I'll have a food processor or a stand mixer, but for now, I've made pie crust by hand for 30 years, so I'm used to it. But you see, I've still got some pretty big chunks of butter in there. We want to get those down to, say, pebble size. And there we go. That's what you want it to look like. You want your butter really incorporated, but you want, the butter to be in kind of small pieces. Again, it kind of looks like just sand. Now we're going to add our ice cold water. Exactly 5 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not going to look like it's right. For me, I'm just going to take a fork. Just kind of work this around a little bit. You're not going to think it's enough, but I promise you it is. And you really want to do this quickly, because your butter is going to start warming up, and that would be disastrous. So just kind of work it around in there, make sure it's all if you're concerned that it's not right, this is what you want. When you pick it up, if you mash it together, it holds like that, then you know it's right. That's the texture that you're after. All right, very quickly, I'm gonna wash my hand. I can tell my butter is warming up quickly. If you're not trying to videotape this, it'll work just fine. So, saran wrap, cling film, whatever you want to call it. Get you a pretty decent sized piece. got room. Dump out your mixture. Make sure you get it all. Can y'all see this well enough? Dump your mixture out. Take your saran wrap. Pull it tightly around your mixture. Twist it up like that. And you're going to make a little disc. Just like that. You can see little pieces of butter in there. That's what you want to see. Now we're going to put this back in the refrigerator. If I was going to bake the pie right now, I would only leave this about 20 minutes. Actually, I'd probably leave it at least 30 minutes because I can clearly tell my butter has warmed up, which is definitely what we don't want. Put this back in the refrigerator. I'm going to tell you 30 minutes to an hour and get all your ingredients back cold. Especially if you're going to make it now, if you're going to make your pie now today. If you're not going to make your pie now today, you can make multiples of these. You can double the recipe and make multiple crusts at the same time and just split your dough into, however many pie crusts you need. Roll them up like this. That's all you have to do. You can stick these in the freezer and they will last for 3 months. So when we get into, like, say, September, I'm going to start making these several at the time, and I'm going to put them in the freezer. So I'll already have my pie crust ready for the holidays when I start, making pecan pies and more apple pies and whatever pies. So that's it. That's all you have to do. You have just made your own homemade pie crust. Hope y'all try this. Baking pies is quite easy. As long as you follow the recipes exactly, you will make a beautiful pie crust every time. Also, the reason you need to put this back in the refrigerator and let this all... I'm going to put it back right now while I'm sitting here running my mouth. The reason you always want to put your pie crust in the refrigerator and let everything just kind of, chill, let your butter harden back up a little bit. You need your pie crust to rest. You need the gluten to rest. So if we made the pie crust right then and attempted to roll it out, we could do that. It probably wouldn't work out too well because your butter is melting, so it's going to stick to absolutely everything. But more importantly, the gluten is going to make your crust keep snapping back. You're going to try to roll it out and it's going to snap back. But even worse than that, if you put your pie crust into your pie plate to bake it, when you get it out, it's going to have shrunk probably that much all the way around instead of staying on the edges of your pie plate, which is what you want it to do. So really important to, once you make the pie crust, put it in the fridge, leave it, I'll say minimum 30 minutes to give that gluten time to rest before you attempt to bake it or to make a pie with it. So I hope y'all will try that. We're soon, in the next day or so, we're going to bake an apple pie. And I'll show y'all how easy that is to do. And I'm going to use the apples that grew on our tree right outside. So thank y'all for watching. Hope you have a good day. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.